Hello again, everyone. New TV restoration starting today. You collectors know what this is, but we'll go ahead and go over some information about it for the folks who are watching who aren't big-time collectors. This is a GE Model 805, and it's also known as a Locomotive. You can see why it looks like the old train locomotive back in the day. This set has several issues. Number one, it hasn't been restored, so it doesn't work. Number two are knobs. When I bought this set, it had a couple of knobs on it, but they didn't fit right, and while we won't have the knobs that are made exactly for this set, I think I can dig up enough knobs to make it look presentable when we get to restoration finished. The other thing is CRT filaments are open in it, so definitely going to hang on to it. Maybe one day TV picture tubes will be rebuilt. Doesn't look too promising right now, but you never know. But anyway, this is a Model 805, and other than the picture tube being bad and some knobs missing, the cabinet is in really good shape. There's no cracks on it, and I'm sure we can buff it up and make it look nice. But we're not worried about the cabinet right now. We've got to get the set working first. I've done some research on this set. There's several versions of this chassis. This is a Wallace Tella age book that I have. And back on the page here. Okay, this is the 805. You'll notice it says early, T and S, early, and then T and then S versions. Same thing here, schematic diagram. And on this page, that's voltage readings there on all the tubes. And here's a schematic. You can see it says U and W. So that's then we're up to the 810. So that's the latest version, the U and the W. And I don't know what we have till I get this, take the front off of this. I'm hoping it's a later version. Reason being, most of the modifications that the factory made, they were finished by the time they got to the latest version. Both these are rider, pretty much rider schematics. This one's in the Wallace Tella age book, but it looks just like the riders that I printed off. There it says John Ryder. Most of the time, these well, I think all the time, the rider schematics are just reprints of the factory literature. So we have some good literature to go by. And I guess the next thing we need to do, we'll take this set out of the cabinet. We definitely want to put the cabinet up in a safe place because that's Bakelite and we don't want to take any chances on breaking it. So let's get started. This front has a couple of screws right here, so we'll take them out first. Alright, let's stow this away in a safe place. I see a W, so we have a later version of this chassis. Alright, let's pull the cabinet off now. One thing I find strange on these sets, all the ones I've seen, there's a fuse right here. And I'm assuming that's a glass fuse. We'll know more when we get the chassis out. But how would you change it if that's a cap that unscrews? Because the cabinet's right against it. We'll see once we get this chassis out. Let's look this over and see. And we have 4 screws holding the chassis in. Unfortunately, there's only 2 in the very back that I had to remove. The The other two were missing. But there's the cabinet. Well, that is just a typical glass fuse. Really strange. That hole is just too small to get to the fuse cover. And that's a factory hole, you can tell it. So that's the way they were designed. I guess you were supposed to pull the chassis out if the fuse blowed. Alrighty, stored in a safe place. Alright, here's a top view. And all the tubes seem to be there. Picture tube mount. This is what it had on it originally. And this side's gone, so we'll have to come up with something for that. And then there's really nothing on the strap, no padding or anything, but we may put just a strip or something around that. What I see on the top here, this looks pretty original. And that's a good thing. Always a good thing. There's a horizontal output and damper and rectifier, transformer. It all looks good, just dusty. And here's a look underneath the chassis. I think all four of these are original. These connections have a little red paint. I used to mark them at the factory, and all of these have the red on them, so I'm sure they're original. The ones down here all look unchanged. On top, there's one unhooked. I don't know what that's about. I think this one has been changed. Yeah, that seems to be the only one. Lots of paper caps. Selenium rectifiers, of course we'll do away with them. And I'm not quite sure what's going on with this speaker. There's a wire that's been cut on it. Goes to the transformer on the back of the speaker. So we'll have to do some investigating to figure that out. There's another wire. I think that's the wire that's been cut right there. I think they go together. Look like it. Definitely designed a lot different than most of the old TVs I work on, because these two boards here, the way they're mounted, we got caps and resistors on each side. It's probably going to present a little bit of a challenge, but we'll take our time, and I think we can make it work. And I did notice shafts broke on this control right here. Half of it's broke off. But if we get a knob with a set screw, we can tighten it down. That should be okay. Because I doubt if I'd ever find a control for that. Can't just order a new one like you could years ago. So probably, I think what I'm going to do is change these rectifiers and put some modern silicon rectifiers, replace those. And then we may attempt to power up and see what we get. With the Stencor PR57, I can safely do that, because if anything is wrong, the Stencor will protect the circuit and either trip, or we can see if it's drawing too much current and we can shut things down if it is. Done a little reading here on this printout that I was able to get off of the early television foundation. Did notice right here, it said one side of the power line is connected to B- through a capacitor on early productions, and directly to B- well, B1 minus on T, U, and W productions. So always use isolation transformer. So we'll do that anyway. We'll always use the Shango working on these old sets. This thermal cutout protects receiver against excessive current drain or excessive heat. A 5-minute period should elapse after this control is tripped before resetting. If it continues to trip out, the receiver circuit should be checked. That's kind of a safety thing. And over here on the schematic, there it is right there. Controls are the same. The horizontal hold is a little different on the U and W versions. Lots of improvements here. It says fold over on T versions. That's what they changed to eliminate that. So hopefully we have the W, so hopefully all of these changes have been made. It should be good on a lot of those modifications that they did on this set. Now here's the two rectifiers we're going to change. Pretty straightforward. We have this schematic here to refer to in case we have a question. And it's different, as you can see. We have the W, so this is a later version. The speaker's not in the best of shape. We've got 3 big tires. There's another small one. We'll probably just, if it checks okay, we'll probably just be able to recoat that. Keep it where it's at, where it won't crack anymore. Still seems to be moving okay, so if we have resistance on it, then we'll try to reuse it. Alright, you got the insulator and the screws out of the old selenium rectifiers. And this resistor should be 4 ohms. 6.3. Haven't looked on to see what it is, but according to the literature, it should be, it's R372, 4 ohms. Probably use a terminal strip, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think we got room somewhere to mount one for the rectifiers. We can use the hose that these seleniums were mounted with. Probably the bottom one right down there, I would say. I have quite a few to choose from. So let me figure out how many connections I'm going to need and I'll get this mounted. Well, I pulled the speaker out because I was kind of wondering about these 2 wires that had been cut. We look at the schematic. Here's the 2 wires that were cut. They're on the primary of the audio output transformer. And according to the schematic, I should be around 200 ohms. Reading 173, so I'm good with that. Now on the secondary, it doesn't give the resistance. That's the green and the black. Right here. But it should be really low, so we're reading 1 ohm basically. So I'm thinking that's good too. Now the speaker itself, I've unhooked the secondary winding off of the speaker terminal. And the speaker itself is reading 3 ohms. Again, it doesn't tell us what the, doesn't say what the speaker resistance should be, but I say that's correct too. So I'm going to hook all of this back up like it's supposed to be. And we're going to assume all that there's nothing wrong here. I lost another piece of the cone when I took it out. It just fell off. So we're definitely going to have to do some repairs on it, but we'll get it bolted back in, and then we'll cover it up with something, piece of cardboard or something to protect it. And here's a terminal strip that I mounted where the old selenium rectifier was. Just used the same bolt, just cut it off, made it shorter. And I did change the fusistor. All right, a piece of cardboard over the front there to protect the speaker. Terminal strip mounted. Speakers hooked back up. Transformers hooked back up. So let's put the CRT in here and see if we get anything. But before we do a power up, I'm going to check all the tubes. And as I check the tubes, I'll make sure that the tube is in the correct socket. Sometimes folks will pull multiple tubes out and just stick them back in a socket they'll fit in without paying attention if it's the correct socket. So we'll make sure that all of them are in the correct socket, and we'll test them also. Then we'll do a power up and see what we get. Got all the tubes tested. This 12SN7 horizontal oscillator, it's bad, so popped a new one in to replace it. All the tubes are in the correct sockets. So now I think we're ready to do a power up and see what we get. Well, we got tube filaments, that's good. And I had the meter right on the B+. We should have 275. And I had the power right on 90 volt, 95 volts. Let's run it on up. Yeah, we're getting 260, so that should be plenty good enough to make something happen. And we're drawing a little over an amp, 1.1. Picture tube's lit up. You see the filament glow in it. And something going on there, not much, but not much. I would say the high voltage is low. See a pretty good flash when we turn it off. Alright, I think the next thing we need to do is check the high voltage, just see where we're at. Yeah, we're about 4,000. That's not going to get it done. Well, according to the Wallace teleaids, we should have 10,000 volts onto the CRT. And kind of interesting, we look over here on the riders, they say 11,000. So anyway, we need around 10 to 11,000 volts. We have 4, so normally when I do a restore on these old sets, I'll do the paper caps first. And I'm going to do some checking here with my meter on the B+ voltages. If they're close to where they need to be, we may go after those paper caps. That definitely cause all kinds of issues. Hey, that's going to do it for part 1. Thanks for watching. See you in part 2. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, and we'd love it if you would subscribe to our channel. Thanks.